And like yeah, it's they have just
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. Can I get a roll call?
Commissioner Mara,
Here.
Esther Martinez, here, Commissioner Garcia,
Here.
Commissioner Gallardo, here, Commissioner Mendoza, here.
Thank you. May I have everyone rise for the pledge of allegiance? Commissioner Gallardo, will you lead us?
Ready, begin.
United States of America. And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're going to move on to D, public comments from the audience regarding items not on the agenda. Do we have any emails or anyone on Zoom?
Like some of this.
Okay, we're going to move on to E, consent agenda. Adoption of the May 7th, 2024 Planning Commission meeting.
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes from the May 7th meeting.
Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Okay, public hearing. Number one, consideration of a resolution recommending that the city council approve the tentative tract map for the Robichaudi commercial phased subdivision project on a 25.9 acre property located at the southwest corner of Walnut Avenue and 3rd Street, east of US 101, and the southern end of the city, APN 109-114-005, 006, 008, and 010.
Thank you, Chair, members of the Planning Commission. Good to be with you today. Ron Slammer, consultant planner for the City of Greenfield. I think you outlined exactly what they want to do. For the Robichaudi tentative parcel map. Just to orient us once again, I'm sure you're very familiar with the Walnut Avenue specific plan area and the 60-acre box and our efforts over the many years to develop this for commercial purposes. We're looking at the right side, the 25.7 acres, basically on the southwest corner of 3rd and Walnut and extending south all the way down to Apple, excepting the portion that's the summer ends, which is the pond, and then also the park, the Greenfield Community Park that was built a few years ago. As we know, development of the specific plan area has been moving along. Probably not as fast as we'd all like to, but it's moving along. The Travel Center project is that was the first of the commercial developments on the Robichaudi parcels, moving completion soon. And as you know, for many years the property has been for sale, the Robichaudi parcels, and one of the things is it's tough to sell 27 acres of property by itself. There are very limited for people who can just 27 acres of commercial property and have the capital to do so. So the property owners have requested that, kind of like the travel center parcel, that which you see here on this map is what is parcel 1, where my cursor is pointed. I'll see if I can blow that up a bit. But we put it into smaller chunks, and it makes it more likely that you can sell something to a business. So that's the plan here. The goal is to have 10 parcels and then one remainder parcel, which would be most likely used for residential purposes on the south and near Apple Avenue next to the park and south of where that road is going to be. So you have two parcels fronting Walnut up here, 4 parcels in this zone right here, and then you've got 4 more parcels, one fronting the freeway, and then these 3 interior parcels. And then left over, that would be for future residential development at some point. So in order to do that, they have 4 existing parcels. Technically, they will be merging the parcels and then subdividing the parcels in accordance with the map. Talked about the Walnut Avenue specific plan many times over the years. Those of you that have been on commission for some time, was adopted. It's reached its 10-year anniversary now. The ERR has been certified, and really that plan guides the development of commercial growth, high density residential, the recreation open space, and all the supporting infrastructure that goes with it. Because that's important when we talk about this map broken up into numerous parcels. It has all the standards, the circulation plan, and it's a flexible plan. Is as we move along, as development occurs, as changes happen in the economy, what the city was looking for 10, 15 years ago, retail has changed a lot. Life pre-COVID and well before that, everything was, let's get big boxes built in. Well, big boxes aren't developing anymore. That's just not the model because you can buy everything online and it just, stores are shrinking sizes. We have this issue with retail shrinking all over the place, with malls having issues, with department stores, everything getting smaller because of e-commerce, quite frankly. And so you have to modify what you're going to do. Where it's still strategic to build, you still do that. There are plenty of places that are underutilized with commercial development, and all of South County fits that description. We talked about this before. And so there are opportunities, but they're going to be very focused opportunities with companies that are looking to locate or expand their business. But typically the footprints are smaller than we used to see 15, 20 years ago, just because of the nature of how the economy works and people being more comfortable now buying pretty much anything online. So it is a flexible plan. The maximum capacity of the whole plan is 445,000 square feet of commercial space and then 220 dwelling units. We have plenty of capacity in that. So that's not a concern as far as how the space is laid out. In fact, doing this would probably shrink that capacity. And that's important because one of the discussions that has happened over the many years is the remainder of the residential parcel that's down in Apple Avenue. At that time, the Walnut Avenue plan is always considered residential to buffer between Apple, the park, and then future commercial development. A number of years ago, some of that residential capacity was moved up onto the northern end of Walnut Avenue. And the question is, well, what happens with that capacity? Bottom line is you're going to have to amend your project to put in more units if that's what you want to do. It would very likely reduce your amount of commercial square footage. That can be done. It will take an amendment. And so whenever we get around to wanting to develop the residential parcel, we'll have to look at an amendment to the specific plan to accommodate that, because we've already moved a number of those units up to the north side of the city. So the specific plan. That being said, that's for the future. This is for the actual subdivision of the parcel. So one of the things that the specific plan did when the EIR was adopted, it made it really easy for us to do things that if it's consistent with the EIR, we don't need to necessarily do initial environmental analysis on that. And that's the same with this project. This project, really, we're just moving lines around. This here was one of the conceptual land use plans that were drawn in the original specific plan. So you can see the backbone infrastructure where the road goes is pretty much the same. The biggest difference in terms of the map is you see it broken up into more parcels. So additional street behind where the Chevron building is going to be, and then smaller parcels. And then, of course, the uses may change a bit, but the idea of the backbone infrastructure still remains. The development standards that you're looking at in terms of evaluating this proposal, remember, this is primarily a highway commercial project. So the biggest issue I think I would put on here as far as your consideration today is by splitting up the parcels into smaller bits, it does limit. It does kind of limit your development to smaller projects. Now, someone could eventually, there's nothing that says someone can buy 2 or 3 parcels, put them back together again and build a bigger building. But smaller parcels are generally going to yield smaller buildings. One of the things that the developers are looking to do are opportunities for sale parcels. So a lot of shopping center properties, they're owned by the one development company that builds the buildings in there for lease. The Solar project, the Solar Marketplace project is an example of that. So where the Dutch Bros got built, where the Bush Railroad is, all those are lease opportunities. And there are a lot of companies that's nice, but they're looking for sale properties. And so I think that they're trying to place themselves in the market where they have an advantage here in Greenfield for people that want to buy their lots. There's some business advantages to doing that. But someone could buy up 3 or 4 lots and put them back together to do a more integrated development. As I mentioned, the property owners tried for years to sell the big chunk without much success. The table of development standards is in your specific plan. The biggest thing to look at as far as this requirement is you have to have a minimum lot size of 10,000 square feet. Every lot is well above that. I think the minimum is 1 acre. I think it goes up to 2.5. Parking. One thing about Walnut Avenue specific plan is the concept of shared parking, so that parking can be transferred across parcels. But this is something you'll have to look at on a case-by-case basis when you get projects in front of you. Every commercial project, as you know, in the city of Greenfield is subject to planning commission design review. Whether it's a permitted use or it needs a use permit, so you will see every project that comes across. Of course, future projects need to comply with all these things that I showed on the screen: landscaping, signs, etc. Today, we are not looking at any pluses. I know we'd love to bring more projects to you with pluses on them, but those will be determined at a future time. Obviously, those pluses need to be consistent with the Walnut Avenue specific plan, the land use table. As I mentioned, design review will be required at a future point. It's really important to note here. So the biggest concern probably for us as we move forward in looking at a project like this is when you have one developer, one piece of property, typically speaking, all the improvements get done at the same time. When you break it up into lots of pieces, how do you make sure the improvements get done? The pipes, the roads, everything. If you split it up into 10 parcels and someone wants the parcel in the middle, how do you make sure that they have access to water, sewer, and road? Well, it doesn't make sense to develop a parcel in the middle without developing the road on the edges first. So there's a detailed phasing plan in the conditions of approval that outline what's required for each individual parcel on a specific parcel by parcel basis. So the requirements, for example, for the parcel in the corner of Walnut and Third require certain widening and relocation of that traffic light, consistent with the specific plan, which are different than the requirements, say, for the parcel next to the freeway that's adjacent to Apple Avenue, for example. Or not off of Apple, but off of that road that will extend off of Apple Avenue. So each individual lot has its own individual requirements, which the developer or the end user will have to meet before they can get a certificate of occupancy for their project. And of course, you'll see it again when they come for a specific proposal to develop any of these parcels for whatever use, whether it be a restaurant or a bank, office, hotel, etc. So it's really important, and we've set it up so that the infrastructure get put there before anything opens. So that we don't have, like I said, roads to nowhere, or buildings without acceptable roads, sewer, water, stream drainage, etc. The recommendation from staff is that this would go to the city council. We're recommending that you will approve or recommend approval to the city council. The proposed motion up here. I'm here if you have any questions, clarifying questions. We have a public hearing. I believe we may have representatives from the applicant online with us today. So more than happy to take any questions you may have, otherwise have a public hearing and available as needed.
Thank you, Brent. You want to go ahead and open public hearing? Do we have anyone? Okay. I'll go ahead and close it. And I'm gonna go ahead and move on to C, planning commission discussion and decision. Commissioner Mendoza?
Couple of questions on this, from the seller. Is there a sales strategy? Did he put a sales strategy in place that says, okay, if we do this, this is gonna be, we have a better shot at selling?
I don't know how many of the representatives are on the call. However, I know we're discussing our talk and how we're going into detail about the approach that they're looking to take. We talked to the broker about this, and it's exactly what I said. So one of the issues is, someone comes to town and say, I'm interested in putting business here. And we get those inquiries. And the question then becomes, well, can I buy the land? Right now, the answer is, yeah, you can buy the land, but to buy 25 acres of it. So if I want to buy 1 acre, what do I have to do? I have to go something like parcel. And it's a process, to do that. And their idea is, let's subdivide them all now. And then, that step is taken, that's done. Now I can sell individual parcels to any user. Having done economic development down, I can tell you, it's a lot easier when you're selling a 1 acre parcel than when you're selling a 25 acre parcel. And then there's a lot that availability of the pool of people interested will increase substantially. Like I said, that's been the biggest thing is that they need, as I've talked to the broker about it, talk to our consultants, they need parcels. So actual parcels that they can sell to end users. So that's in terms of the marketing. I know they've put out there, the commercial broker, let's put their signs out there, like into attending the conferences and all the other things where, reach out to businesses that are more than likely to come to South County and specifically Greenfield. So if they do that, it's a tough market, living here, how it is, but I think from this standpoint, splitting up parcels and making them more flexible makes a lot of sense in terms of that approach. The property owners aren't developers that are going to buy a bunch of buildings and then have people come and rent buildings from them. That's not their strategy or approach.
I know, Mr. Megan, the city contracted company to get commercial in here. Does this play into it as far, is there any conversation there where, hey, they're gonna, separate these or make different parcels and, is there something that says, yeah, well, they're more interested or bigger businesses would be interested in coming in?
Yes, Commissioner Mendoza, Capital Winners has been involved with the property owners. The Wilashawty family owns the tract, and in fact, they have worked with a broker out of San Jose, Mr. Sangelini, for 4 to 5 years, aggressively trying to sell it as a large piece altogether, and unsuccessfully, I might add. And I think just after introspection, the property owner said, we should subdivide this and get some APN so we can sell discrete parcels. And they do have, are they on there? Because they would be available to speak if it's appropriate, but there are interested people that are looking at moving right in. But so the answer to your question, which is there a strategy to this? The answer is yes, there is a strategy. And it's pretty sophisticated. A lot of players involved. The broker and San Jose, the property owners are aggressive, and we've been just partners to try and handle the land use side of things.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Gallardo?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if any of these that are zoned commercial, if someone purchases it, could they try to change it to residential?
Yes, I can try. They would go through the specific plan amendment process. Remember, the specific plan amendment is flexible. And that's how the buildings on Walnut Avenue, on the north side of Walnut Avenue got built. It was originally designated as commercial. And at that time, changed those to residential uses. One of the issues now is there's a certain capacity in the plan. And so we have to make sure that we meet the capacity. If it goes over the capacity, we have to amend the plan. Like I said before, I don't think that we're going to, just given with the subdivision of these parcels, the chances of us meeting a 435,000 square feet of commercial whole project is very unlikely. So that by definition, will probably move us into room for residential units, but we have to do that analysis. So someone could request it something residential, and then it would be a decision of the planning commission, city council, is non-residential, whatever spot that they would like to do that. The plan as it was to put residential water close to Apple and Third, where the park is, and keep Walnut for residential, but it's been changed before. It's certainly subject to in the future, so someone wish to do that.
So would that be a long drawn out process, or, I mean, it's like, I mean, I realize that people would have to look at it and analyze the whole thing, but.
Yes and no, because for example, so the remainder parcel, also south between Apple and the block extension of Open Sale, the 12-acre parcel, we can do a lot with that, and that's anticipate for residential development. If you purchase one of the pads, you're buying 1 acre, and so there's a limited amount of units that you can put on there. So is it likely that someone would buy that for residential purposes? Probably not, but it doesn't say that someone couldn't try. That's could possibly be surrounded by commercial uses. So we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, I guess. And if you see we can get the project to this current one.
Oh,
Thank
thank you.
Vice Chair Hughes?
You talked about infrastructure going in before these parcels are built. They're going to put another stoplight there between the Arco and Carlos Jr.
Right?
Yeah, because there's a lot of traffic going in and out of there. So if they add more parcels and they're built, there's going to be a lot more traffic going in.
It's not anticipated at the present time. However, there's always the option to restrict left turn movements, which is the biggest issue that we have. And how the traffic comes in. I see that all the time in shopping centers where they want to go out and go place specifically, and it can be further away from the freeway. And so, probably the next step, more than likely, is to restrict those left turns. But the traffic analysis doesn't indicate that it needs warrants to do that yet. Certainly, as development increases, one of the things that we looked at this time that wasn't done last time in terms of the striping, the turn pockets, the lanes, all that stuff that should have been put there when that project was built. Making sure that that's there this time. Yes, there's an area, but there's no designated turn pocket. Like when you come from eastbound and you want to make that turn into that Arco center, you don't have a defined turn lane to get into that and cross. Same thing coming out of there. And so some of those types of improvements that once we do alternate improvements, one of the other things is there's a plan with this that goes with eventual widening of the bridge, which is a big ticket issue. Signalize the bridge, which would be timed with Third Street to time those signals to make that work a little better instead of the four-way stop. So the next plan would be to signalize the bridge itself. That's a big ticket project. And that, quite frankly, Vice Chair, is the ultimate constraint on the project. So and I didn't mention this because we're not doing buildings here, we're just doing a map, but there's a limit of 100,000 square foot of development before someone has to do something with the interchange. So, there's only so much we can build there before we get to that cap where something has to be done with the Walnut Avenue Village itself, before anything else can go on. So before we get to that 400,000 square foot or even close to that, that bridge has to be widened and signalized, which is a big ticket project.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Garcia.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
So, the 220 high-density residential units that the specific plan called for initially, are you aware of how many of those units were taken up by the Avila project?
No,
Well,
So that leaves
108.
100. Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, 100. Okay. So, and he is, he's essentially wanting to subdivide 4 parcels into 10.
10 commercial parcels and then a residential parcel.
Okay. And then you just spoke about the bridge and the widening of the Walnut, and if that's triggered at full build out, are the people moving in gonna have a share in impact fees for that? Big
So they're,
ticket items?
so they're paying impact fees now. You know, every building they contribute impact fees, that's their fair share contribution to the bridge project. Or some of the city council determines where the money doesn't go anywhere in the city. But that's the obligation of the bridge project. It will take more than just impact fees though. It's going to take help from Caltrans, regional traffic dollars. It's a regional facility. The more regional traffic that gets drawn there, the more need for other communities, but pay into the regional. So every house, whether it's in Solomon, Florida, Solace, pays, every house in the county pays into the Thompson Regional Traffic Fund. There's homes in South County help serve South County projects, which this is one of them. And the funding from TAMS, some additional funds from the state, getting grants, getting all those things. That's a heavy lift. Anytime we good Caltrans all the road, but that's the plan. And we have only a certain amount of development we can handle before that gets triggered. So that would be part of it, because we do not want to be in a situation where we have, as much as we want 400,000 square foot of commercial development, it will become a gridlock if we don't improve the bridge.
And same with the entrance 1 to 4th to Apple too. That's, I think. So can you just give me an idea of, so the parcels are going to be divided down to 37,026 square feet up to 105 and change square feet. So can you give me an idea of like the Dutch Brothers that were just built in Soledad and they're going to be built in King City? The square footage of a company like that? I know we're not talking about businesses, but I just would like to size parcels.
With those, for example, is the building itself is not that big. It's the requirement for parking and for the drive-through lanes. We can see that in some of these places, and think of some of the fast food restaurants that draw a lot of so those are more asphalt intensive just because of the type of use. So probably looking at an acre of space to handle just the offside movement, because we don't want them queuing in the street. We want them to have a place on the property to move. Typically, your retail doesn't go above 30%. FAR is just family ratio, so you can have a 30,000 square foot parcel, we will usually have about 10,000 square foot building, and the rest is parking. So you can go down to a quarter. It just depends on how intensive the use is. Fast food type uses, much smaller FARs than retail, like a grocery store. You can have furniture store, for example, that doesn't have the parking demand like a grocery store does. So it depends on the business. But generally speaking, if you're 1 acre can support the business you talked about, and we can support a restaurant, a standalone, we can support a gas station, the parcel that we're building, the general use pizza Hut project is in the commercial. So that should kind of what we can support that.
All right. Um, And also, if it does come back to where we do have to do an amendment to the specific plan because of any future proposed residential, could that be like a mixed use with businesses on the bottom, residential on the top?
It would ultimately depend on what the developer at the time will be proposing and change the specific plan. And the biggest thing is that it'll have to be an addendum to the amendment. Because it would change traffic patterns, residential traffic patterns are different than commercial patterns, and once again, we're looking at how everything operates and if to what extent the city is going to reduce the commercial cap. I think that's what the draft will do eventually.
Yeah, I see that happening a lot in Monterey downtown. They're doing housing on top, business on the bottom, and it looks really good.
Thank you. I think both my questions have been answered. But I mean, if this is gonna hopefully attract new businesses, hopefully I'm all for it. So if no one has anything to add, we have a proposed motion on page 14.
I'll make the motion. I move that the planning commission adopt resolution 2024-02, recommending that the city council approve the tentative track map for the Robushati commercial phase subdivision project.
One second now.
Can I have 2 seconds? Everyone in favor? Aye. Thank you. We're gonna move on to number two, consideration of a resolution approving design review and a variance for a existing 608 square feet house and 997 square feet addition on a 4,400 square foot lot at 717 Oak Avenue, APN 024-094-015. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Planning Commissioners. Like you said, we have a design review and variance today for property at 717 Oak Avenue. Go ahead and get started. So the project is located on Oak Avenue, the intersection of 8th Street and Oak. This is a parcel that's zoned for high density residential. The applicant is Eric Bean. He is a court appointed receiver for the property, meaning that he's been appointed by the courts to take possession and rehabilitate this property. And he's on the line, so if more details are as to the receivership, I'm sure he's happy to speak on that. The design here is Jaime Barcelos, and you can see a lot right here. It's this very narrow lot next to an apartment complex. So this project, this is the remodel and expansion of an existing single family residence in a new addition. The lot is 4,400 square feet, which is a lot smaller than the typical lot that you would see for this type of development. Currently, there's a 608 square foot home on the site. It's abandoned, it's a nuisance property. And the proposed project involves expanding it up to 680 square feet and adding an addition of 997 square feet, meaning that this would take the existing home and convert it to an ADU, and then the addition at the back of the property would become the new primary home. And then, like other projects, it would come with landscaping improvements. This proposal meets the zoning code for most of the zoning code's development standards, including density, height, landscaping. But it does require a variance for setback requirements and covered parking, which we can talk more about. So these are the existing conditions. I'm sure you're all familiar with this site. It's looked like this for as far as I can remember. So it's good news that there's a proposal to rehabilitate this property. As you can see, it is very narrow. The frontage is only 30 feet, which is about half the width of the typical site that you would see for a single family home. This is the site plan. Nothing up here. So up front, we have the existing home. As you can see, it's been built kind of slanted. And the intention is to keep it and expand it slightly and add the new main house at the rear of the property. The residence is oriented towards Oak Avenue and has no driveway in the front, so parking would be accessed through the rear of the property through Ann Scott driveway. The setbacks for the front and rear of the property are met, but the side properties are the side setbacks are what call for a variance. The high density zoning district actually has 45-foot setback requirements for the interior lots, which given the width of the property are, physically impossible to meet, which is why the applicant is requesting a variance for that, as well as the covered parking. The site coverage is 38%, which is in compliance. There's currently a chain link fence around the property, which will be taken down and replaced with a wood fence and a new gate at the back. The project complies with the landscaping requirements. The floor plans, so the existing and remodeled structure will have 2 rooms and 1 bathroom, and then the new home will have three bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. These are the elevations of the front view from Oak Avenue, the rear view from the alley. These are the side elevations for the property. The landscaping plan, so new landscaping up at the front, near the parking spaces, and at the rear. This is the preliminary plan. Really quick. Okay, so some things to consider is that, like I mentioned, the narrowness of this property does require a setback variance. So 45 feet is a pretty large setback to me, and currently their setbacks, I believe, range from 3 feet at the east side of the property up to most 8 feet at the west side. So clearly they would be requesting this variance to meet that setback requirement. And another thing to consider is that the project does not meet the covered parking requirements. And one thing I will note that from the beginning, the applicant has worked really hard to try and come up with a parking arrangement that does allow for more parking. When the project originally came in, we came with 3 parking spaces, but due to the narrowness of the lot, it didn't allow for the vehicles to turn out safely, which is when they came back with the 2 spaces that, made the exiting out into the alley a lot safer for the residents there. And we do recognize that parking is an issue, and I'm sure, ideally, and if this was a larger, less new law, would of course be requiring the 4 parking spaces, but given the narrowness, it would be very difficult for them to meet those requirements, which is why they are requesting this variance as well. The project does not require a CEQA review, and it is our recommendation that the commission adopt this resolution to approve the variance for the setbacks and parking requirements of section 17.30.040 and 1758.050 of the municipal code, and approve the design review for the construction and remodel of a single family residence and ADU at 717 Oak Avenue, subject to the conditions of approval. So if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them. And like I said, the receiver of the property is on Zoom. I'm sure he's happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll go ahead and open that public hearing. We have
Good evening, commission members. This is Eric Beatty, the court's receiver. I'm appearing remotely by Zoom. I'm in Southern California. I'm happy to expound a little bit upon some of the considerations that arose in the litigation. I function as the court's agent in this instance, and I'm happy to expand on why the variance for the parking and the side setbacks is so critical to the viability of the rehabilitation of the property. I'm happy to do that, or I'm happy to answer any questions that the commission members may have now.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Beatty?
I have a more kind of a comment slash question. First of all, thank you for being appointed, I guess, to address this abandoned nuisance property. I mean, it really is, it's a terrible aesthetic for that area. I noticed in your letter to the city of April 9th, you mentioned that it will reduce the likelihood that the property ends up in receivership in the future as it's going to be renovated to become an income generating property. So you mentioned you're down south. Who is going to kind of oversee this property once it's built, and kind of regulate, if possible, the number of people living there so that the parking doesn't become such an issue, because it is a huge issue in town. I'm kind of worried about the number of bedrooms in both the ADU and the main residence, and only 2 parking spots. I wasn't able to go to Ann Scott Circle to see what kind of street is available for that. But will somebody be monitoring this property?
Thank you. That's actually a very good question. From a monitoring standpoint, unfortunately, I think that would go to an issue that unfortunately goes beyond, or really goes after the conclusion of my work as a receiver. What I anticipate, there are 2 paths to the property getting rehabbed, and they're relevant to answering your question. First, if it makes more financial sense, the court may, subject to the city's agreement with the city attorney, instruct me to sell the property to a buyer who will complete the redevelopment construction work if it's approved by the city, or the court may simply instruct me to do that work. Because Mr. Berthasell, the owner, is deceased and has been since 2011, I will necessarily need to sell the property to complete my duties. So unfortunately, the issue of regulation of the occupancy goes really beyond my purview. But I will say this, having done this form of work, and it was largely my personal recommendation from my experience that these are expensive processes that cities undertake. And my major concern here is that having a 500 square foot home on the lot really is not a long-term, very viable use for the property, especially if it could contain a second unit. My expectation and experience has been that having done this both as a receiver and as a small developer myself, is that customarily both sides of the property are generally occupied by an extended family. It's generally not by a tenant. Usually multi-generational families will be particularly interested in this type of housing. It's affordable to purchase, and it has 2 separate units, typically for an extended family. I share the commission's concerns about parking. We did try very hard to get 3 spaces, even with alley access. 3, I think, would have been more my preference to match the bedroom count. But because of the uniquely narrow size of the lot, I just do not think we can get that. And so unfortunately we end with 2. I do recognize that on the Oak Avenue side, to my observation, that is a high density parking area. Parking would be off the alley, but I don't know that we could get more than 2 spaces really without impairing the building envelope for the property. So I do think, to direct answer, I do think that it will likely not be an owner user that will want to rent out a unit. I would fully expect, given the area and where the property is located, and just the strong desirability for small multi-tenant projects like this for extended families, that you will get a family that'll want both sides of the unit. And it would be a very affordable option for them as opposed to buying a larger home, given what I anticipate the property would be worth when the rehab work is done. I'm sorry, hopefully I answered your question. That's about the best I can do.
Yeah, no, I understand. Thank you for that. And, I know the process is long and complicated, and I just wanted to thank you for your work on this.
Also, can I add, just I understand the concerns about the bedrooms. I will say that the ADU is exempt from the parking requirements, just under state law, the ADU is permitted use there, and then it is exempt from parking because of the proximity to transit. Or just a side note.
Yeah, I know that.
Okay. Thank you. Vice Chair Urquidez,
No comment.
no comment? Okay. Commissioner Gallardo?
Yeah, I just have a comment, it's kind of humorous, I think. Like, most people will add a room to their house. This person is adding a house to his room.
Essentially.
Agreed.
I don't see a problem with this actually. I like to see it go forward.
All right, Commissioner Mendoza?
Before I comment, or though I did get a letter in the mail about this public hearing on a business that I have interest in, so I don't know where I stand there as far as comment or vote.
The letter, was it public comment?
That was a public comment level, stating that this was gonna be about, the hearing's gonna be about this project.
Okay. A public comment we would share with all of the commissioners, ordinarily. So that's something that you can give to, Evelyn, and she can copy and provide or, include in the record. With respect to your vote, it's really your call. It's always the commissioners, up to a commissioner whether or not to determine whether or not they have a conflict. So our advice is always that if you have a concern that you shouldn't vote, just to be on the safe side, but that really is up to you.
I'll go ahead and recuse myself.
Thank you. Okay, so I did go to the property just to check it out myself, and the layout of the house is odd. I did go on, can you go back to the map with
The site plan or?
no, where the alley, where I can see the alley, that one. So I did drive by and Scott Drive. Where's the alley? Unless, is that the alley?
Yeah, so it's called Anscott Drive, but yeah, it's essentially the alley.
Okay. So, yeah, that's very narrow. I went in there and there was a car parked at the other end of the Anscott Drive, and I had to reverse back
Oh my gosh.
because it was blocking it. I wasn't able to, So, yeah, I guess that's always, our concerns and the whole parking situation. But yeah, I mean, if it's gonna upgrade the house, the property and the location of that, property, yeah. I'm all for it. I mean, so there's no way that, right, with the two parking, that's the only way that makes it.
Yeah, it really is. They tried the 90-degree parking stalls and it's just kind of impossible for the cars to back out. So the only way really is for this layout that was chosen. And I think trying to fit more cars in there probably wouldn't be a great idea because like you said, it is a very narrow alley. When we first began working on this, we actually took a drive with the fire chief to check out the narrowness and his truck was tight in there. So cars should definitely not be parking there.
Yeah.
I think trying to put even more cars back there with the alley as their main access point probably is not a good idea. And I think the applicant really did try their best, and the two spaces that they have right now seem to work. And as long as no one parks in the alley, then they'll be okay.
And is that the reason why the main house will be in the back because of the parking situation, or why did he decide to do that?
But I'm not sure.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes, I'm
So why did you decide, or why was it decided to have the main house in the back and not in the front?
largely because of the very tight side access from the existing home. It would make more sense to add on to it slightly, moving toward the alley. And then to have a larger, not wider, but longer second unit that's attached closer to the alley. So we would make minimal changes to the existing layout of the existing home, just because it is so tight on the lot and the lot is so narrow. We can only really go in one direction, and it's most cost effective to, from a feasibility standpoint, the more cost effective approach is to try and keep the existing home as close to its existing layout as possible, use as much of the existing construction as we can, and then make the back home effectively the addition. The second home would now become the main home. So it's a cost issue, and because of the very narrow lot dimension.
Okay. Thank you. Can I see the view from Oak? And you said we're changing, the fencing's gonna change, right?
So we have a 3-foot fence in the front and then a 6-foot fence on the side and rear with a gate in the back.
And there's no entrance, correct? Can I see the layout, so there's no entrance, right, from Oak to the home? It has to be in the back.
There's both the entrances, I believe, right through the side right here. We see this is the ADU entrance. And then this is the main home entrance right here. So I guess this one's sort of at the front.
So how many cars can fit in there then? Just two?
Yeah, just the two.
Well, what about the main house? And then you have the ADA. How many people can live in there? There could be more than 2 cars.
Yeah, so the 2 spaces are essentially for the main home and the variance is to relieve them with the other 2, but the ADU is exempt from parking under state mandate, the state ADU law.
That's all I got. Anyone else?
Maybe they'll have motorcycles.
In response.
Okay. All right, well, thank you for that. I'm gonna go ahead and well, there's a proposed motion on page 39 if anyone.
I move that the planning commission of the city of Greenfield adopt resolution number 2024-03, approving a variance for the setbacks and parking requirements of sections 17.30.040 and 17.58.050 of the municipal code and design review approval for the construction and remodel of a single-family residence and accessory dwelling unit at 717 Oak Avenue.
Second,
I'll second it.
everyone in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna move on to number 3. Consideration of a resolution recommending to the city council adoption of a rental registry ordinance as an amendment to chapter 17 for the purpose of regulating the city's rental housing stock. Staff report.
Good evening, Madam Chair, from the Planning Commission. I'd like to recommend that this matter be continued actually, because we were unable, I was unable to get the reports done on time for review by both the city attorney and starting to the reviews. So if it If the planning commission, the best thing to do would be to continue this to a date certain, which would be July 2nd. Now, that would allow us to not renotice the project. It shouldn't be controversial, but we've had numerous workshops on it, and we haven't had the interest from as many in the public as we really would like to see. So we probably renotice it anyways. However, I would recommend the planning commission would mind to give this matter to a date certain, which would be July 2nd.
Is this with this continuance be in a motion format? Make a motion to continue item 3, consideration of a resolution recommending to the city council adoption of a rental registry ordinance as an amendment to chapter 17 for the purpose of regulating the city's rental housing stock to the meeting the regular meeting set for July 2nd, 2024.
I second.
Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna move on to other business. Anything else? No, all right, thank you. H, comments from planning commission and staff.
I just want to mention that on my drive home today, I noticed that the Jamba logo is now up on the building.
Oh,
Right.
Also, I was gonna say, last week I was coming, I go, when I go to the city, when I go to the planning commission, I'm gonna ask them where the signs are. And they put them up.
and it's this one over here on,
But there's a problem with this one. You barely can see it.
yeah, I see.
It's sided away a little bit. It could have been on the other side. Yeah, it's noticeable, but you gotta really see it here to notice it. You gotta be almost on top of it to see that.
Or the weeds are almost as tall as the sign.
Yes. So I have. And I've got a couple questions actually. And again, I've been approached by different citizens about it. Any updates on the museum?
I'm Rogers for the news.
Yeah.
I'm Rogers. The most recent, the most up-to-date information that I have is that the contract of building, not saying that correctly, but they were waiting for some specialty parts for the foundation.
Okay, my second thing I was approached about is like, why is it taking so long to get that sidewalk completed between Oak and Elm? That thing went on for months and for a week, it was just a standstill, nobody was working there.
We'll have to ask about that.
No, it's on 12 between Oak and Elm.
Why we still read it, right?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they don't work on that for, geez, a minimum, I'd say 3 weeks, they're just sitting there and I think I saw a truck out there today, but I'm not sure if they were leaving stuff or picking stuff up.
I don't know.
No. Yeah, because I think, if I remember correctly, wasn't some of the monies that was a portion for that or was from Campsie? Campsie donated funds for that, for the sidewalks there?
I don't know for sure.
Yeah, because I'm on the Campsie committee, yeah, as you all know. And I think that some of the money came down from Campsie for that.
Obviously, so I'll make sure.
It wasn't public works, no.
Shouldn't it? Chief County,
Oh, I know it's not public works. It's
County,
some contractor.
okay.
I know, I think back in February, we got an update of everything that's going on in town. When can we expect another update? I have colleagues that are asking about, possible subdivisions coming up. I know there's one here that could be approved or is plans are in or something. Inventory's tight out there and people need housing and they just want an update on what's going on in town. So I'm not sure if we can get something.
Meeting.
Thank you.
Also, I'm gonna bring it up again. I've had a couple of constituents over here ask me about the pizza place. Are they gonna do anything about that, or are they just gonna leave it like that?
Hopefully not easily, because they are, plans for them has been approved and we're waiting for the owners to, the building permits for them. The plans are under review and, they approved, we worked out the last issue involving their trash receptacle probation on the site, so we'll follow up with that as well. I need a big update for next month. And then see they will.
I also want to mention that there's progress on another project that was before us. I think it's Oak Terrace. Is it Oak Terrace? Yeah, that's, if you have time to go drive by that. That it looks, it's funny to see it on paper and discuss it and then to see it actually bloom to life. It's pretty cool.
If you can add on your update, the Barone family, what's that called? We don't even have a name for that. I haven't seen any movement.
Microbrewery.
Yeah, yeah,
It's sitting there.
yeah, there was a lot of movement. I thought it was going up, they were making progress, but I haven't seen much progress, so if we can get an update.
Sure.
And also I just wanted to mention that I noticed the banners for the senior class are being filled, so that was really nice. Hopefully we can do something for veterans and graduating classes.
If I could add one more thing. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that there was a program giving away bicycle helmets for young kids at Oak Avenue.
Yeah, yeah.
And that went over really well, and they were teaching the kids how to maintain their bicycles. And they were going through safety procedures, making sure that they were aware that if you're on a bicycle, you have to drive by the same means as you're in a car. And I mean, I thought they went around really well. There was a big turnout for that. And then contrary to that, a couple days later, they were giving bicycles away there also. You probably would. And I saw these grown-ups just go, let's just stop for the kids. It's like, you're supposed to stop and stop sign. I mean, especially now if you're carrying a little kid with you. Matter of fact, I think I'm going to write a letter to the local newspapers and emphasize that, especially now that school's out. There's going to be a lot of kids up there messing around on the bikes. Yeah, I thought that whole thing went over really well.
All right, thank you. Anything else? Okay, I'll go ahead and adjourn at 7:03.
Better stop.